In the modern economy, the harshest rule is also the simplest. If your skills and personality can be easily replicated, you will eventually be replaced. From adolescence onward, social survival demands that we smooth out our rough edges. We learn to hide our eccentricities, suppress our strange obsessions, and mold ourselves to fit an imaginary, highly acceptable average. But yielding to that pressure carries a heavy toll. By the time many reach their 30s, having abandoned their unique inclinations to follow the safest trends, they often find themselves deeply alienated from their own lives and professionally expendable. Surviving this environment requires the exact opposite approach. You have to actively engineer your own irreplaceability by becoming a non-fungible human, someone whose specific combination of traits cannot be swapped out for a cheaper alternative. Abandoning the pursuit of being normal is the price of entry. It is the mandatory first step for anyone hoping to escape the conveyor belt of replaceability. Real capability is built slowly, often in the shadows. Author Robert Greene spent 18 years wandering through careers he loathed, from failing to write a novel, to turning out forgotten journalism articles, to battling Hollywood executives. While this looked like aimless drifting, it was an intense period of compounding skill acquisition. Under the constraints of journalism, he learned to write on strict deadlines. Hollywood taught him deep research and theatrical framing. He was quietly building an arsenal. Look at how this works on a biological level. Taking the time to master diverse, complex skills physically alters the structure of the brain. Through neuroplasticity, deliberate practice forces new, dense neural pathways to form, turning disparate experiences into permanent, hardwired abilities. When you stack enough of these highly varied, specific skills on top of each other, you cultivate a rich soil. From that groundwork, unmatched capabilities eventually emerge. In biology, the diversity and resilience of an entire habitat rely on spontaneous genetic mutations. A random deviation in a single organism's DNA can spin off a new species, ensuring nature survives against threats. Human culture operates the same way. Your deeply personal idiosyncrasies, your niche tastes, even your strange neuroses are the cultural equivalents of those genetic mutations. They are the exact traits that keep you from becoming a generic clone. Consider Salvador Dali. He took an obsessive, hyper-imaginative nature and weaponized it, completely intertwining his bizarre aesthetic with his public persona to ensure that no one else in history could ever replicate his presence. The instinct is often to dilute these oddities to please gatekeepers. When Robert Greene delivered the manuscript for The 48 Laws of Power, publishers urged him to strip out the strange, hodgepodge marginalia and format it like a standard business book. He refused. Embracing your strangeness is your strongest defense mechanism. By leaning fully into the quirks no one else possesses, you make it economically and socially difficult for anyone to commodify you. Possessing raw skills and unique traits isn't enough on its own. The human brain evolved under the brutal necessity of survival, meaning it requires intense external barometric pressure to focus energy and organize chaos into actual invention. In the 1870s, Thomas Edison spoke to the press and boldly promised to light the entire city of New York with safe, cheap, incandescent electricity within 5 years. At the time he made this promise, the technology to do it did not exist. By setting an impossible public deadline, Edison backed his own team into a corner. The crushing weight of public expectation forced them to stop cautiously tinkering and execute a massive leap in engineering to save their reputations. Contrast that forced desperation with what often happens when people achieve unearned victories early in their careers. Without the sting of failure to teach discipline, early success breeds a soft, conservative mindset, terrified of taking risks. True pressure often comes from catastrophe. When 50 Cent was dropped by Columbia Records and blacklisted by the industry after surviving a near-fatal shooting, he was stripped of his safety net. That total isolation forced him to bypass gatekeepers and innovate the independent street mixtape market. Those who dominate their fields do not sit around waiting for life to challenge them. They deliberately engineer high stakes, using the threat of failure to force their own evolution. Once you have built a dense foundation of skill and survived the pressure cooker, the rules of the game change. Advancing further relies less on raw capability and almost entirely on mastering human psychology. Your most volatile asset in this phase is your reputation. A carefully maintained image projects authority before you even enter a room, but it is deeply fragile. Once credibility is sold out or compromised by a careless mistake, there is no return policy. Controlling that reputation requires managing how often people see you. The perceived value of anything scales with its scarcity, requiring a deliberate dance between absence and presence. Napoleon Bonaparte recognized that if he attended the theater in Paris every single night, the public would quickly take him for granted. By choosing to appear in his emperor's box only once a month, he turned a mundane outing into a spectacular event that demanded attention. This chart tracks dopamine responses to different reward patterns. Notice that when a reward arrives on a predictable schedule, the dopamine release stays relatively flat. But when the delivery becomes erratic and unpredictable, the chemical spikes dramatically. The brain becomes obsessed with what it cannot anticipate. You can leverage this exact mechanism by strategically withdrawing and limiting your availability. You command significantly more respect and mental real estate than someone who is constantly present. Our modern understanding of power often fixates on an outdated stereotype. We tend to picture a Machiavellian operator as someone rigid, unyielding, and openly ruthless in their ambition. Machiavelli's actual philosophy centered on a concept of virtue that required extreme fluidity. He believed power belonged to those who could read shifting fortunes and change their nature to match the currents of the time. This adaptability is rooted in the idea of homo ludens, the playing human. Retaining a sense of curiosity and a spirit of play allows you to evolve through different eras and technologies without losing your core weirdness. Enduring relevance does not require forcing the world to bow to a brittle ego. It is about stacking such a specific, idiosyncratic combination of talents and oddities that the world has no choice but to contort itself to make room for you.